Which one did I say I was going to do next? We'll do shields. I think that's what I said, right? Shields will be fairly quick, nice and easy. There's not a lot to go through, and there's not a lot that are actually substantial. I used this view last time. Can't remember if I had the blue border. That's actually been a few days. I was meant to just get these all done, because they're pretty simple. And, right, I'm just reading off the wiki thing, giving my thoughts. So it's nice in that regard, but I don't know, I got delayed. Anyway, shields. We'll go through the order on the wiki. So I'm looking at the stall, relevant. A lot of the early game shields, they don't give anywhere near enough HP. The eye, I guess it's useful because it has the slots. The iron shield, I do use, but I would just chuck it here. Alright, the uses I find for it are more significant than what most people, I would say. I don't think a lot of people would ever bother crafting an iron shield. Then goblin shield, again, leather shield. They don't do anything substantial. The amount of HP they give is just not substantial. Because they have the gem slots, we'll stick it there. The frog shield. This is actually the first big jump in HP where I do think it is somewhat relevant. It's definitely not to the mid game, but more than the eye shield. Pig, again, irrelevant, does nothing. Bullseye would have a use if these weren't as common as they are, right? You can easily find either of these shields. So I'm actually going to stick that in the irrelevant, despite the fact that it obviously has a slot, right? By the time you can craft this 60 plus, according to the wiki, you will find eye shields, right? They're uncommon, they're not hard to find. After that is the steel shield, craftable again, HP, less than substantial. Gold shield, here's where it gets significant. Definitely best in the early game. Some use in the mid game, but I would say heights of early game. Obviously speedrun wise, I try to farm them because they are just such a big boost to gold, 20% per shield. And you can stack them, you can upgrade them, so they are super useful. And they're not too hard to farm either. You can actually use the reset blacksmith trick, right, to get as many as you want. After that, we have the Darkwing shield. Again, we're kind of getting to the point where the HP is relevant. They're sort of the thing that you just let auto-equip at this point, right? At least with the gem slots. You tinker with it a bit, you stick in the gems you want. Altogether, I don't think going out of your way for these shields, or to make sure you have a full set of these shields, is significant. The Prisma Shell Shield, there we go. Because of its HP, again, significant. I think anything for 20 is significant to the early game. Anything below that is not. Unless, of course, you get the upgrade versions. Power Shield, right? Mid-game, early game, it's probably the best shield before you get into the real, end-game stuff, right? So the crafting or hunting down the mammoth shields. So I do think it is significant to the mid-game. Definitely the height of early game, if you can find them. You can get them fairly easily from the primal lands. Definitely no purpose in the late game. There's really only one shield you want for the late game. Well, maybe two. But for the majority of the time, you're just running the mammoth shield. No, we'll stick with that thought too, right? Two shields. After the power shield, we have the stoplights because of the regen. Makes it better than both of these. I would still just use a power shield. And I'd still probably just stack the gold gain in the early game rather than going for the gem slot. Cosmic shield. Magic damage and essence find. Again, if essence find was balanced a little bit better, this would have some purpose, but I do think it's, again, another sort of irrelevant one by the time you start finding them. It's a legendary shield. It drops 900 plus, right? So 900 plus, and then all you're getting is 15% magic damage and 3% essence find. Again, when essence find is really, really irrelevant, you get more benefit out of the gold shield. In all honesty, right? You just want to stack gold because the conversion rate using the magic well is significantly better for gold than any amount of essence find you could stack or get. With the possible exception of the multipliers, but a 3% bonus is horrible. Divine Shield, another irrelevant crafting shield, right? You get it for the mid-game. I've never crafted one. Have you crafted one? Right, I think it's probably the main shield that has never entered my codex. It is just a flat 10% damage reduction, which is nice. You can stack it. You can go for damage reduction cap. The only time I really do is on the blacksmith, but at the same time, that's counter to the purpose I utilize for the blacksmith, right? I want him to undergo damage reflection, so I don't really want to stack max damage reduction. I just want to stack a lot of HP. Radioactive shield. Definitely sees late game use. Definitely sees mid game use if you can get the crafting materials. We'll stick it in late game for now, right? Between this and the mammoth shield, you probably go back and forth, depending on your comp. The Fleet Wing Shield. I think if they made evasion like 100%, So I think the cap is 90%, and it's only accessible on either the Soda Junkies or dual wielding on the Blade Master. But I think if they unlocked the cap and made it possible to not only get 100% if you stack the right gear, this would be late game. Right, I think evasion builds would be significant to the late game, because then you don't have to worry about ambush, you don't have to worry about really anything if you could get to 100%. The fact that you can't, again, it's another irrelevant shield by the time you can actually make use of it. Crystal God Guard, 30% damage reduction and a 50% health increase. For the simple purpose of stacking HP before you get the relics, I will say it has use. Definitely has more use than the power shield. That's another thing to sort of actually compare. In relation to the power shield, I guess you use the... No, you know what? I'd still take the damage of Essence Find. But the Crystal God Guard, it is mythic, so chances are you're not going to get it for the late game. It definitely doesn't see use in the late game. So it's kind of a hard one. Okay, the AGS. Now this has a essence multiplier, so this is actually somewhat feasible to be utilized. It is also easier to find and easier to get than Cosmic Shield. And again, because it has that point multiplier rather than essence find, it is a bit more significant. So I would say it does see use. Would I take it over the power shield? Probably not, because I'd want the gem slots to run like Withering, to run Gold Find, to run Status Resist, to run, you know, whatever you run in terms of gems. Not having a gem slot, I think, lets it down. The Dino Skull, 50% damage reflection. I do like this shield. I think to most it is irrelevant though, right? You don't really stack damage reflection. Again, my whole use or utilization is to max it on the blacksmith, and that way he can taunt and take care of ambushes in the Primal Lands. Again, I think it's theoretically equivalent in speed or slightly quicker. Okay, so it's somewhat beneficial, and I could see use using the Dino Skull Shield, but to the majority of people, I would say it's irrelevant. You get it around the mid game. Then we have the Leaf Shield, damage reduction, so it's similar to the Dino, no, not the Dino Skull, the Crystal God Guard. It's only 6%. Does help you reach the caps, but I think you never really utilize it, to be honest. Again, there's just better shields for you to use, and the importance of gem slots across the board is really significant. That's any shield without a gem slot, right, is pretty irrelevant. And then obviously gem slot with weak effects is equivalent. You know, we'll stick this here, actually. Right, if we're going to put the AGS, we might as well stick it here. Now, Treasure Hunter Shield, right? We'll leave the Mammoth Shield because it's probably the biggest talking point. 10 item find. I do think that's relevant. We can debate over the odds of item find as much as you want, right? A little increase is still an increase to me. So I am on the board of just stacking item find when going for your mythics, right? Get as much as possible, right? Way over the cap, way over the suggested. It is a marginal bonus, but a marginal bonus is still significant. And not only that, the way that the rolling works, right? So you roll through items, I think you get 500 or 200 chances, and it rolls list down. So it does roll against all the mythics, right? And the more item find you have, the higher chance for each mythic, because the denominator gets reduced, right? So say a mythic is 1 out of 10,000. For every item find, you reduce the denominator by 1, right? So if you have 200 item find, that 10,000 is now 9,800. Okay, you go to 201, right? It's 1 point less. That is still an increase for me, so I like stacking item find. And if you, again, calculate all the odds, you can get double the item find. Granted, double the item find, again, is marginal and not really statistically relevant, but it is still an increase. Now, the Mammoth Shield. By far the most useful, most beneficial shield. If you could realistically get it in the early game, I put it here. Mid game, definitely the best shield. Late game, definitely still the best shield, right? Just the fact that you can gain battle credits per boss defeated. And this is a big thing, because you can gain battle credits a lot quicker through a lot more passively, I should say, through grinding the normal dungeons, so the Primal Lands or the castle, using the battle credit gear, so the mythic chest piece, the shield, quicker than you can get with boss rush, right? There are infinite comps, there are quick comps, and you can get decent rates, but if you chalk up, progression in terms of gold, progression in terms of finding essence, as well as just floor progression, with the ability to generate battle credits, it is significantly better than ever touching boss rush, right? Find these shields as quick as you can, in all honesty. Get to the Warrior Dimension, grind Primal Lands, 300 plus, Mountain Zone, get 6 of them, and just use them the whole way through. And because of that, again, if I could, it would basically make everything but the radioactive shield irrelevant to me. Right? Everything else is useless, even going for the item grind, right? Finding all the mythics. If you have access to a full set of mammoth shields, you should always use a full set of mammoth shields. Again, the only time this sort of changes is once you have everything you want and you're trying to meet all the soft caps for stats and you need that bonus from the radioactive shield. But I would still say that realistically, in the face of the mammoth shield, this is the correct tiering, right? There is nothing else relevant once you have a mammoth shield. Once you have 6 mammoth shields, there's no point ever touching any other shields. You just want the battle credit gain because it is just going to benefit you the most in the long run, right? So there's the tier. Pretty relevant, I think. Right, mammoth shield is just king.